Hi, everybody. You're watching White Mountains TV. I'm Chris Prue, and I'm joined for another virtual interview, this time with Eric Savage. He is the corresponding secretary of the AMC's 4,000 Footer Committee. Thank you for joining us, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me over.
And he joins us all the way from Exeter, New Hampshire. We're going to talk a little bit about the quest to summit all of New Hampshire's 4,000-foot peaks. For those who aren't familiar, Eric, with the quest, tell me about what it entails.
Well, it's fairly simple. There's a list of 48 mountains that, originally were deemed to be the ones over 4,000 feet. And people started, putting together a list. There was actually a list put together back in the 30s that had a smaller list, but it caught on in the 50s. And originally it was a way to get people to spread out a little bit. Back in those days, the Presidentials and the Franconias got all the traffic, and nobody had almost never heard of some of these other places. So it was in addition to being a fun list for those people who were into that sort of thing, it was an excuse to say, hey, go check out some of these other places, spread out a little bit.
So an early form of social distancing almost back in the day.
Right, or looking for a little solitude when the popular mountains were too crowded.
And plus when you spread out,
what they call crowded back in those days would be blissed, I think, to some people now. But
yeah, of course, when you spread out the traffic too, it helps maintain the trails with erosion and things like that too.
Right.
Anyway,
to get to the question you were asking, the simple thing is that people climb all 48 of them,
yep.
And then they submit an application to us. We have a patch that we give out. We have a certificate that we present at our annual awards ceremony in the spring, and but yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that. Climb the 48 on foot. No mountain bikes, no taking the cog railway halfway or anything like that. But
and all 48 of these mountains are they within the White Mountain National Forest?
Yes, yeah, all 48 of them are on the National Forest land.
And even the number of these mountains is a little bit controversial these days. The latest measurements from the last couple of years has Mt Tecumseh, right? Just a little bit below 4,000. What's the latest on that?
Well, so far we are still partly waiting for all the data to come in. The LiDAR data has been coming in chunks, and most of it is in. So partly we're waiting because in addition to the White Mountain list, we maintain a couple of lists that spread out over New England. So, at a minimum, we want to make one decision on everything. So we wanted to wait till all that data was in. We're still also looking at some of the, there's some people out there who aren't convinced that the LiDAR data is as accurate as it says it is. It's very precise, but those of us who do statistics know that precision and accuracy are two different things. So for now, the committee is staying with the traditional list of the 48. Hard to say whether that might change down the line if the technology improves or becomes more convincing or something. But for now, it was decided that it would be best to stick with what we have for now and take some more time to think about it.
All right. Now, there was recently a decision that the committee made, which has made a little bit of news. People who hike or who are attempting to summit all 48 of New Hampshire's 4,000 footers may have to wait a little while for some of these summits to count if they want them to count. Tell me about the decision that was made by the committee.
Right. So that was, it was a tough decision to make. Of course, the governor issued the stay-at-home order, I believe it was March 28th. And about that time, we had put together a fairly strongly worded statement, like a lot of the hiking clubs had, in support of social distancing. The mantra we had was hike low, hike local, right?
Yep.
This is not the time to be bagging the big peaks, doing long, treacherous climbs and such, for various reasons. We have people coming from all over the place, New York, Quebec, even farther than that. So of course you didn't want people coming and bringing, whatever they might have with them. There was also concern about the local towns and the capacity they have medically. They're not built like, it's not Boston or even Manchester where they've got, 100 beds or whatever. So if something were to happen, not only were you exposing the rescue workers to each other and the rescuee, also you'd be, potentially taking medical attention and facilities away from, the efforts against the COVID-19.
Right.
So we put out a fairly strongly worded statement saying, please stay home, stay local, the mountains will be there. Now it's not typical. Once winter ends, we don't have a lot of people going for our list in late March and April. But we were seeing a lot of traffic up in the mountains, a lot of chatter on social media about, why doesn't somebody do something about this? And, our original thought was that a lot of it might be focused on this thing called the grid. I don't know if you've heard about this.
Yep.
But it's people who have taken that our challenge one step further and trying to do every mountain in every month. And historically, the people out hiking in April are much more likely to be working on that grid. And so we were, weren't sure how much of an impact we were having anyway. One of the big concerns is we didn't want to come off as, some kind of governmental authority telling people whether they could or couldn't hike. So we first went with this strongly worded statement. But, again, maybe proving our point, it didn't have a lot of effect. People were still going. We got a lot of feedback from people saying, why are you encouraging people to hike at this time by, recognizing the climbs. And so we had a conversation with the AMC leadership and came to a decision that, we would in fact take that next step and if it helped to encourage people to stay home and wait, we'd put it out there. And so as of April 13th, we've declared that we will not recognize peaks hiked until each of the governors, because we have 3 states involved, each of those states have lifted their stay-at-home orders. And interestingly enough, within 24 hours, and I don't know if it's coincidence or if somebody was following our lead, but the people who administer the grid also came out, like I said, within 24 hours and made a similar statement that they weren't going to count peaks either. So,
yep. It seems that sometimes in these situations, it takes one action to have a domino effect, and that may be what's happening. There was big news when the Forest Service put out a similar advisory: please don't go into Tuckerman Ravine, stay away from that area of Mount Washington, even though you may be experienced, accidents do happen, and there's just a snowball effect, no pun intended, of consequences that can happen. And like you said, we have a very small bed base at our area hospitals here in the White Mountains. But the strongly worded warning wasn't enough, and they eventually had to close down the whole eastern side of Mount Washington. So did the AMC committee, did you have any interaction with the National Forest when you were making this decision?
We did. Our chair was in contact with, I believe, the Forest Service, talked with AMC. We also have some informal contacts with people who are, living up in the North Country involved in search and rescue. And that was one of the things that sort of preceded our decision is, a couple of different search and rescue groups had come out, again, really trying to urge people that this is not the time to go after the big peaks. This is, don't make us have to come out and get you kind of. And so in support of that as well, it's sort of, we thought, what, maybe it's time to take that next step.
Yep.
And, some people have taken it, most people have taken it pretty well. And most of the comments we've gotten are positive. Some people are like, why didn't you do it sooner? But, there's a few out there who, like I said, they get us confused with some kind of government entity, and they're thinking, we're clamping down on their freedoms or whatever. And that's
Nope. Well, this is, I certainly, respect the decision because, again, I think there's so much shut down around the New England area that even though, like you said, March, April, and even May aren't the most popular hiking months to knock off your 4,000 footers, maybe there'd be a little bit more interest because there's not a lot else going on right now. So even discouraging people from, traveling in general, I think helps this effort.
Right. Yeah. And that's, we sort of figured that a lot of that traffic is happening, and it may happen whether we recognize peaks or not. People, like you said, with nothing better to do, and all of a sudden they don't have to go to work, 5 days a week, and they think, but, I'm a big proponent of finding your local stuff. I've done that for years anyway, and it's paying off now because I know all these little hidden spots locally that I'm still not running into people. So it's a good time to discover your local places. I know the Forest Society put out a bulletin a few weeks ago sort of highlighting, hey, we've got, 100 and some odd reservation properties all over the state. This would be a great time to find the one that's in your area.
Yep. I've seen great photos on social media from people all over the state discovering these little hidden gems that they didn't even know were in their backyard. So
right.
A great time to do that. And so to recap, we're talking with Eric Savage, corresponding secretary of the AMC's White Mountain 4,000 footer committee. And the official statement is, what you guys do is you hand out patches, right? You reward patches for those who summit all 48 4,000 footers.
Right. Yep.
So the statement is you will not be counting any mountains summited between now and when this stay-at-home order is lifted.
Right. Currently, I guess it's May 4th, although I think it's May 15th in Vermont and maybe the 1st. And, it's different in the different states, but most people you talk to expect that those will get extended for, at least another couple of weeks, if not a month. But our policy will be to go until, the governors have declared an end to that stay-at-home order. But hopefully, like I said, we don't usually get a lot of people using dates at this time of year, so hopefully it won't be a big deal. But we'll
all right.
We'll see what happens.
Before we let you go, what's your 4,000 footer status? Because have you done all 48?
Oh yeah, yep, done all 48, done them all in winter. In fact, I just finished a second round of the New England 4,000 footers with my daughter was doing her first round of the New England fours. So, I've got about halfway to the New England fours in winter. So,
wow.
And a lot of there's a lot of lower peaks too. The thing about us list people is, once you finish one list, you're always like, oh, what do we do now? And so there's plenty of lists out there, but like I said, not a lot I can work on right now. So, just
you can work on your planning right now. Exactly. Get out the maps, do some discussions on social media, and plan what you're going to tackle once the stay-at-home order lifts. And,
exactly.
We always have to ask, do you have a favorite view, a favorite hidden gem among these 48?
Oh, among the 48. Yeah, there's Garfield. There's a pond, Garfield Pond, which is not usually visited on your day trip.
Yep.
Because it's on the back side from the day route. But that's just a neat little place to explore and again, really get away and find some solitude really close to some of the big mountains.
All right. There you go. Eric Savage from the AMC's 4,000 footer committee. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
And hopefully maybe we'll talk to you another time, and hopefully we'll see you on one of these peaks one of these days.
That'd be great.
All right. You're watching White Mountains TV.